All right. So what I'm going to do, because it sounds like we have a few first-time judges. So, and I can see some of my returning judges like Vicus. So thank you for coming back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about this season, and then my experienced judges. I'm going to give you the evening off, but I'll go a little bit more in depth than with the first-time judges, right? Because I want to go through the rubrics with you. The other thing I just want to gauge too is, did you get a chance to go through the training materials? Because First Headquarters did a really good job this year at putting together some training materials and some videos. So anybody able to do that? Especially the first-time judges, were you able to view those? Okay, Nikki,
I
great.
started them, but haven't finished.
Okay, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of information. So I'm going to kind of um, do a high-level review with you as we go into our first weekend. All right, so let me get started. So just to introduce myself, I'm Nancy Okabe. I'm the Arizona Judge Advisor, which means I am the Judge Advisor at our state conference in January for Scottsdale. So there are many of our veteran judges who are judge advisors for different qualifier tournaments. And our job is to make sure that we facilitate that process for you so that the judging process is smooth for all of the teams. My big goal for Arizona is to make sure that all of our processes and all of our tournaments are consistent from tournament to tournament so that everyone has a good experience. And that includes the experience for you as judges as well. So appreciate all of you taking your time to volunteer with us. We really need you. As Elaine mentioned, we need a lot of judges to hold all of these qualifier tournaments. We still have, I think, one or two qualifier tournaments where we still need some judges. So if you have friends who would like to join us, please send them our way. You can have them contact me, or you can have them go directly into the volunteer system and sign up. We're happy to have newcomers. You'll have a lot of fun. So I'll tell you, it's going to be a long day, but it's a lot of fun interfacing with the teams and getting to know the students. So it's an awesome day. The other thing I'll just say is please give me feedback too. As you go through your tournaments, send me feedback on what worked and what didn't work for your tournaments, because we always like to improve. So feel free to send me feedback, positive or negative. I really would appreciate that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And we will get started. Okay, so the teams that you're going to be seeing this weekend, we're going to have a lot of new rookie teams. So hopefully we're going to give them the best experience that we can give them. What they know coming into these tournaments is that they have to compete in all judged areas. So what we're going to be looking at during these tournaments, 4 different areas. The robot performance, this is how the robot does in the robot game. And we're not responsible for that area, right? The referees will oversee that area. But the other 3 judged areas we are responsible for: robot design, innovation project, and core values. And so we're going to go through each of those areas. They must compete in all of those areas. However, if a team shows up and they don't have a fully constructed robot, or maybe they don't have an innovation project, that's okay. We're really trying not to disqualify teams. So what we want you to do is just score them based on what they're able to share. If there's nothing to share, use that session as a coaching and mentoring moment. So keep in mind that as judges, we're assessing what they've done, but we are also coaching and mentoring them. We want them to be better teams going forward. So anything that we can do in that area to give them positive feedback and constructive feedback is important, especially with rookie teams. Teams should have a minimum of 2 team members and a maximum of 10. If they're outside of those eligibility requirements, just make a note of it. You don't have to say anything to the team and just mention it to your judge advisor. All of the teams, and when we say teams, that means the students, that means the coaches, that means the parents, all of them must demonstrate good core values. So once they step on site at a tournament, we are measuring and looking at their core values. So any feedback from any volunteer at a tournament on core values on a team or parents, that is valuable feedback that we get as judge advisors. So all of those things are important. All right, so let's talk about the interview process. So here's one of the changes for this season, for those of you who have judged before. You can see from this process that one thing has been removed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But for all of my judges, the way the process works, each team will go through a 30-minute interview process with the judges. The teams will come into the room. You're going to welcome them. You can ask them a few questions in terms of, what are their names? They might come in with T-shirts with their team numbers. You want to verify is judging to make sure that you have the right team. That should only take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. You're going to want to just explain to the team that you're going to have 2 different sessions, right? First, you're going to start off with innovation project. They'll have 5 minutes to present to the judges their innovation project. If they go a little bit over, that's okay. Just keep in mind you want to keep to the 10 minutes for the innovation project. If they go to 6 minutes on their presentation and they're giving you good information, then you might want them to continue. And then you just have less time for the Q&A. So the Q&A portion of the judging piece is important because when you get to the rubric, you want to have enough information from the teams in order to score them. There may be some areas that they forget to mention, and that's where you're going to ask them questions during the Q&A process.
And
the
Nancy,
robot design piece.
Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. We lost your screen.
Yeah, I had an interruption there. Here we go. Thanks, Ben. Okay, everyone can see it again?
Yep, we're all good.
Okay. So for the robot design piece, the teams don't have to come in with a prepared presentation. You can ask them if they have a prepared presentation, and if they do, you can go ahead and have them present it. Should take about 5 minutes, and then afterwards you'll have a Q&A process with them as well. They should bring in their robot so that you can actually see the robot, and they should be bringing in their attachments. The tournament director should be reminding all of the teams that they should bring all of that information in. If they don't, that's fine. After that piece, we're going to go right into a final share. Okay, so that'll be the last 8 minutes of the presentation. So for core values, what I would recommend, it typically takes about 3 minutes for the team, for you to give the team's feedback. And we want you to give the team's feedback. So what I would say for the other 5 minutes, as a judge, I would ask them, is there anything that you want to share with the judges that you haven't shared before? If they say no, I would ask them core value questions. Okay, so when we get to the rubrics, you're going to understand why there's no core value piece in here, because it's really attached to the robot design and project piece. However, a lot of the information can come from those areas. One thing that won't come from that area potentially is going to be the impact, right? What has their team done in terms of sharing their FLL knowledge outside of FLL? So you're not going to really get that. So that could be a question that you still ask in the final share if they don't have anything to share. You also might have a team that comes into the room and they might actually have a core values presentation. If they do, you can go ahead and let them do that, but make sure that you're keeping them to that 5-minute time frame, right? Don't let them exceed that. You really want to have the last 3 minutes at least to give them feedback. So as judges, it is part of our responsibility to be mentors to these teams. We want to give them some positive feedback. What are some of the things that they did really well?
You froze.
She froze again, right? Oh, we lost your sound, Nancy. Can you hear us? We lost your sound. Oh, you're back. I think you're back. Nope. Technology. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes, now we got you back. Oh,
Kim, if I keep talking, are we good? Okay. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's mine or what's happening.
I would suggest turning off your video feed because it's probably choking up your presentation and your bandwidth.
Okay. Can everyone still hear me? And can everyone still see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just chime in if I get lost again. Okay. So the feedback. Make sure that you're giving them constructive feedback. The other thing is you will give them written feedback on the rubrics. So one of the things I want to emphasize this year is make sure that you're giving them very specific feedback, not general feedback, like your presentation was great. That's nice, but their presentation was great because they did what? Be very specific, and especially in what they can do better, be very specific, because they will use this feedback to improve if they're going to state. So we do have, because that we're having 72 teams at state, that means more teams are going to be coming, and many of those teams may be rookie teams. So they're going to need as much feedback as possible so that they can improve. And they have between the qualifier and the state tournament to make any improvements to their project and their robot based on your feedback. So it's really important. Any question on the revised interview process?
I just put a question in the chat. Can you have these interview process steps, copies of them in the room for the new and old judges to use?
Yeah, for the tournaments that I'm supporting, all of this information, the copies of the rubrics, the interview process will be in your packets. And we also will give you a sample questionnaire, right? So questions that you can ask if you don't, especially if it's your first time and you don't know what kind of questions to ask. So we're going to give you sample questions. So we will give you copies of all of that in your packets when you arrive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can also jump in and speak to the Red Mountain qualifier and the Scottsdale qualifier will also have all of this information in packets in every judging room for you.
May I? And I have a question. So
yes,
we're given these pre-made questions, but we're also not limited to them, right? We can still say, ask follow-ups and things like that if we want clarification.
Absolutely. And you don't have to use the pre-made questions. So they're really just starters, especially for new judges. So I actually don't use any of the pre-made questions when I judge. So one of the things I would just suggest, and you're going to know this as you are talking to the teams, you need to fill out the rubric. Anything that the team doesn't share with you and that's on the rubric, those are where your questions need to be, right? So once you get to the rubric, and many of the teams forget to tell you about their testing process, you have to go back and ask them. So what was your testing process? how did you, determine it was enough? So you need to ask those questions, otherwise you can't score them.
Okay.
So they're just starter questions for you. Okay, good question. Okay, so everything for robot design and innovation project is really going to be centered around this engineering process. So it's process oriented and how the teams actually follow the process in order to get to their end result. So these 5 areas are going to be on the rubric: identify, design, create, iterate, and communicate. And so it's going to be consistent on both sides. So on the innovation project, each season we have a different topic or prompt for the teams. They use this to create their project. And this is what it was for this season. They have to identify and research a problem faced by people who explore the oceans. These are some of the examples that we provided them, in terms of, I'm a marine biologist. How can I have a better way to track a large school of fish, right? They don't have to use these examples. It's just a starter for them. They can go in and research any issue that they want and then come up with a final solution. So this is what the innovation project rubric looks like. So for my veteran judges, these rubrics are different from last season because there are some of these assessment lines that have these little circles. Okay, these circles mean that this particular assessment area will count for both innovation project and core values. So you can see that there are multiple areas that falls within. And if you think about what those core values are, you can see that it does kind of make sense, right? In terms of innovation, right? So here's the explanation of the innovation in solution. And it talks about teamwork. How did the team do together to come up with a development process, right? So each of these are tied to core values. And that's the reason why we don't have a separate core value rubric. So each room will have 2 judges, one for robot design and one for innovation project. The other thing I want to mention is on the robot design. I know a lot of judges want to know how well the robot does in the game. And that's not really the purpose of the robot design award. The robot design award is all about the process that the team went in order to develop their robot. If the robot doesn't even work, that's fine, but how did they go through the process of actually creating their robot, right? How well their robot works is actually assessed in the game. So they will get scored in the game on how well their robot runs. This is all about the design process. What was their mission strategy? How did they design the robot in the way that they did? Did they have sensors? Or did they not have sensors? Why did they choose not to have sensors? Why did they choose the missions that they chose to perform? Why did they choose to design an attachment to do what? And what was the process that they went through to come up with those designs? So that's really what the robot design piece is designed to do. Okay, and you can see on the robot design rubric that there are a few here that also have the core values attached to them. Okay, so this is my last slide for my veterans. We always want to make sure that the team, the students, do the work. If you feel that the team may not have done the work and there may have been too much coach involvement, you can't assume that that's true. You need to ask questions of the team to determine if they really understand and can explain it to you. So if it's something that's really, really difficult and you're like, I can't believe that a team this young could develop something like this, you would be surprised. These students are really, really smart when they go through these processes. So ask them questions. If they're able to answer the questions, then you need to give them the benefit of the doubt and score them appropriately. Make sure you're giving them positive feedback. And then we talked about the core values. So in a high level, that's what this season looks like. Is there any questions from my veteran judges? Because I don't want to keep you longer than I need to.
Is there a award for rookie at this tournament? Rookies, first timers?
So depending on the tournament that you're at, there are some very large tournaments, and they are going to have some optional awards like Rising All-Star that the judges can award. And some of the smaller ones, we're not able to do that, and we're just giving the core awards. So our core awards are the team with the highest score in the game will get a Robot Performance Award. We'll give a Robot Design Award, a Core Values Award, Innovation Project Award, and we'll give a Coach Mentor Award, a Peer Award. So those are the main awards that you'll be determining.
Okay, thank you.
And what I recommend for all of the judges, especially the veterans, you understand this, right? You're going to have to take really good notes, because I guarantee by the time you get to your last team, you're going to forget what your first team looked like and what they did. And it's important for you to remember the details, because you're going to have to talk about them in the deliberation process. So just keep in mind that your team of judges is the only team of judges that saw that team. And if you saw a really good team, then you need to be able to talk about their project or their robot, because the other judges will want to know in order to make a final decision. So if there are no more questions, I want to mention just a couple of things.
One clarification, Nancy.
Yes.
As you said earlier, we had separate questioning, a separate interview for the core values. Now I'm assuming that as a core value judge, we don't have any core value judge assigned, and we as a project and robot design judge will do the judging for core values as well. Is that the
Correct.
expectation?
That is the expectation, yes.
Okay.
There will only be two judges in the room. If we can get a third one in, that would be great, but we just don't have enough volunteers for that. So both of you will make sure you collaborate on making sure you understand the core values piece.
Okay, thank you.
And then the final thing I want to talk about is, depending on your tournament, you may be using the First Hub. The First Hub is an online tool in which the judges can enter their ratings versus a piece of paper. There are some of our that will do it on paper. I'm doing the Litchfield one this weekend. I know Scottsdale does it on paper. If you're doing the Chandler Robotics is for Everyone, they're going to be online in the hub. So if you are on one of those tournaments, you will receive from your judge advisor links so that you can establish your account in the First Hub. And you'll probably receive that either today or tomorrow. For Chandler, I've already sent those out last night. So as judges, you'll need to go in right away and establish your account, because it is time sensitive and will disappear after a little bit. So make sure you do that. Any questions?
And when you said Chandler, you mean the high school?
Yes, Chandler High School. It's the Robotics for Everyone in Chandler. Is that the one you're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't received that link, Nancy. You said you sent that to register.
Yeah.
Oh, and Richard, you haven't received it yet either?
No, I haven't seen it. I'm going to look here at my email again, but
Yeah,
Okay.
I have also not.
Okay, let me check it out and see what happened. Because yeah, those went out last night. I will check those. Sarah?
Oh, there's robotics. Oh, I did get it. Okay. Says
Oh, you did? Okay.
Rick Kale, right?
No, it would have come. Well, maybe it would have come under his
no,
name.
that's instructions on where to.
I'll resend it. So, Richard, you are a veteran of FLL,
Illinois.
but you haven't judged before, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I've judged
Okay,
15 times.
okay, awesome. All right. If you're a first-time judge, stay on and we'll go in through the rubrics and go into a little bit more detail. But everyone else, if you don't have any questions, I'll let you go and have a very nice evening. And thank you so much. Have fun this weekend and give me some feedback, okay?
Yeah, all right, so I looked again, and this is just the event volunteer information that I got last night. So I do not have the sign up.
Okay, because the linkage would have come from, even though I did it, it would have come from First Inspires, I think. So if you got an email from First Inspires, that might be it. But if not, I'll go back and
Oh.
check.
I'll check and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And
Sarah, did
email me also if there's anything. All I'm going to do tomorrow is sit in front of my computer, and any question that you have, I'll either handle it myself or forward it off to the right person. So just email me any questions. If you want a document, a link, I'll help you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you.
okay. So I think we have our rookies left, right? Our first time judges. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. So I just want to go into a little bit more detail with you in terms of the rubric. Kathlena, do you have a question? Because I know you're a veteran judge.
I do not. So it looks like we're all done.
We are done.
Okay.
And
all right.
And you know
great.
what? Thank you so much for coming back this season. If you can do state, I would love to have you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll probably drop then. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye. I can't see everyone on my screen, so I can't tell. I don't want to make my veterans stay on. If they, Ben, you don't need to stay.
Just for posterity, I'm going to be here. I'm Jaying 2 tournaments this year, so I want to really be sure.
Oh, you're cute. All right, so I'm assuming everybody else who's on our first time, and we're going to go into kind of, we're going to go line by line. I know this is kind of tedious, but one of the most important pieces about the judging process, especially for new judges, is because there's a lot of scoring involved in here, and that's our starting point. I like to make sure that we are all level set, right? I can't have some judges who are easy graders and some who are hard graders. So we need to have that balance in terms of everybody on the same page and scoring the right way. So the First Headquarters has done a really good job over the years at really reviewing the rubrics
You
and the
need
language.
to wipe your mouth.
I'm sorry?
It's okay. I muted her, Nancy.
Okay. So they've done a really good job at making sure that the language is clearer, right? As we give them feedback, they update the language to make sure it's clear. So I'm going to try and make this as big as possible so people can see. So on the rubric, the way it's designed, there are 4 levels of rating, from 1 to 4, beginning, developing, accomplished, and exceeds. Most teams, if they deliver everything that we ask of them, are going to be accomplished. This is where really they want to be. If we have a team that gets all accomplished, they're probably going to be eligible for state. That's a strong team. If you have teams that are beginning, then you need to rate them as beginning based on the description in the rubric. I know that I have some judges who look at the rubric and they'll read it and they'll be like, well, they're kind of between a 1 and a 2. If they're between a 1 and a 2, they're a 1, right? If they're between a 2 and a 3, they're a 2. That means they haven't exactly accomplished everything at the upper level. So you need to make sure that you are judging them on their own merit. You are also not comparing them to other teams. So when you see a team, you are judging them on what they are presenting to you, not compared to another team. If a team just absolutely wows you on a particular criteria, then they can be marked as exceeds. And you can see that there's nothing in the boxes for exceeds, because it is one of those moments where, oh my gosh, that is absolutely awesome. And I've not seen that before. It could be, I've not seen that before, which is why we can't actually put language in there, because many times it is something that we've never seen before. It's highly unusual at a qualifier to have a team that's all fours at this point in time. It could happen, but we don't have a lot of teams that go all fours. So keep that in mind. So this first section is the identify, and you can see it says team had a clearly defined problem that was well researched. So keep in mind that these teams were given the innovation prompt, right, about the oceans. So they're responsible for now telling you what their problem statement is. They need to tell you what their problem is. I will tell you that some of the teams forget to tell you that. So at the end for Q&A, you might have to ask them, can you repeat what your problem statement was? So, and that's okay. You don't dock them for that. You just ask them, can you tell me what your problem was? And they need to be very specific. The second criteria here, and both of these are separate criteria. You can rate somebody a 2 here and a 3 on the second criteria. They are not attached. The second one is about the research that they're doing. So if you think about the design process, it is all about the research as well, trying to make sure, okay, so we've come up with a problem statement. Now we have to do research on that problem statement to determine how we're going to come up with a solution. Just to give you a couple of examples, because we've judged many times, and so some of the things that I've seen that really strong teams will do is they will come up with a problem statement, but they'll have a process of how they came up with the statement. So remember what I said before, it's about the process. The team will come up and say, you know what? The team as a whole, maybe we had 5 team members, each of us came up with a potential problem, and then each of us talked about what are the pros and cons for that problem statement, right? So they went through an assessment process to determine what their final problem would be. Same with the research. They should be able to tell you all of the research, or they should be able to show you in their presentation all of the research material. It could be on the web, it could be written documentation, it could be people or experts that they've talked to. So all of those are research materials that they can actually tap into. And they should be able to tell you all about that. So if they only show you that they went to the web and they actually only used one form of research, then that's probably going to be minimal evidence of research, right? Because they only used one source. You could have some teams that use all 3 of those areas and multiple examples under each of those areas. So that's going to be clearly something that they've done well. On the design piece, this is where the team works together in creating a project plan and developing their ideas. So this is where they're going to talk about how they actually put their process and project together, and what are the steps that they went through to come up with a solution. So remember, at the end of the day, they're going to come up with a solution to a problem that they've identified. The second criteria is about the evidence that they're showing you and making sure that you understand who has done what and what their involvement is. Sometimes they will tell you this, sometimes they won't. So you might want to ask a question. You know, some teams will divide into different, if it's a large team, they might pair up. Some teams might be responsible for the research. Others will be responsible for coming up with problem statements. Some other person might be responsible for actually putting together the project poster or presentation itself. So they might each take different components. So they should be able to talk to you about what their team involvement was and what the process that they went through. The next criteria is to create, right? This is where the team actually develops the idea for their solution. And they should be able to show you and tell you about how they got there. Now, the solution could be in a picture, it could be in a drawing, it could be in a model. Some teams will put together a model in Lego. Some teams will put together a model using materials around the house. Some teams might actually show you a prototype. Like if it's a app on a cell phone, they might actually have it in working order. So I've seen the gamut of different ways of them showing you what their solution is. So that's what this first one is. It says explanation. So they don't actually have to show you it, but they have to be able to explain it to you. If they actually show you diagrams, then that's really more than what we've asked for. The second piece is about the model and drawing, right? This first one is the explanation. The second one is about the model and drawing. So they're separate pieces. The fourth area is the iterate, and I will tell you that this is probably the area where most teams have difficulty. So especially in the innovation project, the purpose of the project is to come up with a problem statement and then come up with a solution or improvement. It could be something that's existing, but they're going to improve on it. But the whole purpose is to come up with a solution that is going to benefit someone. And if you don't share it with someone, then they're not benefiting from it. So this is an important piece in both the project and the robot design, but for different reasons, right? In that sharing process, they want to get feedback from whoever they're sharing it with, from experts. It could be some of the rookie teams will share with their classmates, with their parents, and that's fine as well. But whoever you share it with, that's one piece. The next step is ask for feedback. The next step after that is, okay, I've received this feedback. What did you do with that feedback? Did you incorporate it into making your solution better? If they didn't, that's okay, but what you would want to hear is the feedback that we got was X. We didn't use that feedback because of Y. If they just got feedback and they didn't do anything with it, then that's a little bit different, right? So we kind of want to know the entire process that they went through in terms of getting feedback. What did you do with the feedback? How did you use it to improve? And so that's the iterative process. So one thing that we are always interested in is the iteration of any of these pieces. If the team shows you, because if you think about the journey that these teams are going through, they're starting from square one, which is nothing. And by the time they get to the end of their season, they have tried many things. So what are the changes that the team has gone through to make their solution better? If they show you a copy or a picture of a drawing or model, for example, of their solution, and they show you a picture of what it looked like early on, and then they show you the exact model, what it looks like now, and they tell you why they made those changes, that's awesome. That is awesome, because what they're sharing with you is what they've learned through the season. And learning and discovery is a core value of FLL. So those things are important for them to share with you. And then the last area is all about communication. So are they able to actually communicate to you and explain to you how and what the solution is and how it actually benefits others? And hopefully they'll share it with you in a fun way that makes sense. Some of these teams will come in and they will do skits. Some of them will just do a formal presentation. Both are awesome. Trying to think of anything else on project. Is there any questions on projects that you might have?
Quick question.
Mhm.
So this is titled Innovation Project Rubric. Is there a rubrics, that separate rubric for robotics? Because I know you said earlier that there's going to be a judge for project and then one for robotics.
Yes. Yes. So we're going to go to the robot rubric next.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. So this is just for the project judge. Okay, let me flip over to the robot design. So this is the robot design rubric, and you can see that it has the same 5 categories, except for now, some of the language is going to be a little bit different and focus more on the robot itself. So on the first one, it is identify still. This is all about the team determining the missions that they attempt and exploring the building and coding resources. So here's one of the areas where you might have to ask questions. Sometimes the teams, especially some of the newer teams, will forget to tell you what their mission strategy is. So at the beginning, they have to decide as a team, what missions are we going to do? If you haven't seen a FLL game in progress, then you might want to just go on and just Google it really quick. You don't have to know the robot game, but just for frame of reference, it's a large playing field where they are creating a small robot that is actually going to move through different missions. And each mission could be a little bit different. It could mean that I need my robot to push something to another area, like push an item to a circle and they get points. Or it might be I need to come up and grab something and pull it down so that it does something. So that's what the different missions are, right? They require a robot to do different things in order to get points. Could be push, pull, any of those type of things. So there are about, I want to say 15 different missions each season. There are very few teams that go through all 15 missions. I want to say that at Worlds last year, we had about 4 teams that did perfect missions. So in the world, we had 4. So if you can imagine, most teams are not going to get through 15 missions, which means they have to figure out which missions are we going to try to get our robot to accomplish. Okay. So how do they figure that out? Most teams will say they just pick the easiest missions, and that's a strategy. Or it could be we pick the missions that have the most points. That is a strategy. It's a very simplistic strategy, but it is a strategy. Accomplished teams, you will see, will actually give you much more details. Some of the best that I've seen, they will lay out all 15 missions and they will score each of them in terms of how easy it is, how difficult it is, what needs to happen in terms of achieving each of those missions. They might even, so they'll go through various criteria. They will also probably assign each mission to a team member to work on in terms of coming up with a solution to achieve that mission. So you will see something from very simplistic to something very, very elaborate. And then you'll see everything in between. So trying to understand, why did you choose the missions that you chose and why did you choose it in the order that you chose them? So keep in mind that a robot could, when a robot, if you don't know the game, when a robot goes out to accomplish a mission, if the team member has to pick up their robot and bring it back to home base, they lose points. So they are programming their robot to go out from home base, out to a mission, accomplish their mission, and come back to home base all in one run. And then they are selecting a different program to have the robot go out and do another mission. So as you can imagine, that is time consuming to have the robot come back to home base every single time they do a mission. So a strategy could be, we linked 3 or 4 missions together. So we have the robot go to mission 15, 13, and 2 because they're close together and they're doing similar type activities. So that's a strategy. So those are the things that you're trying to understand from a mission strategy. The second criteria here is all about the programming and coding process. Now, all the team members may not know how to code. So that would be something that you might want to ask. If all members don't know how to code, how are they teaching other team members to code, right? So it's all about the learning journey. That's a core value. So we want to understand, how are they making sure that all team members participate. But in this particular one, you can see clear use of building or coding resources to support their mission strategy. So how are they using both of those areas to achieve their missions? And then we go into the design piece. So it's about how the team contributes. And then it's also looking at how the team actually knows how to build and is building and coding. Some teams that you will see and hear from will have all of their team members program and all of their team members will build a robot. You'll have some teams that, some of the more veteran teams might have 2 robots or multiple robots, because everyone is building their own robot. And then at the end of the day, the team will decide which robot is the best one to choose. Each team member might get their own mission and have to figure out what attachment needs to be created in order for the robot to go out and achieve that mission. So there are various ways that the teams are deciding how we get everyone to participate in the process, right? Because we want everybody to learn, we want everyone to have fun and build and code. Let's see, the third area is to create. So this is all about the attachments and the coding and what they're doing to develop in those areas in terms of creating different attachments. I've had some teams who come in and develop very simple attachments. So one thing I just want to, caution everyone, just because a robot comes in, it's elaborate and it's big and it looks awesome, doesn't mean that it's better than a small, more simplistic robot. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's very easy to be in awe of a large robot or a large attachment, but try to understand what it is that it's trying to do. I've seen one very simple attachment. It was very, very basic, but it was able to do like multiple missions at the same time. And it was 100%, meaning that it was always accurate when it went out from base. So that is an example of a very simple attachment that had a great outcome. So just make sure that the team talks to you about what their attachments look like, why they created it that way, and has it changed through the season? Because I can't believe that day one they build a perfect robot and they build a perfect attachment. That doesn't happen. They had to go through some iteration of changes. Okay, so then the next area is the creation. Actually, before I move off of creation, I want to talk a little bit about the sensors, because I know that sometimes the judges will give feedback in terms of it might be better or think about using a color sensor or a light sensor to help navigate through the mission board. And that's helpful in many ways. However, it's not mandatory that a team uses a sensor if they are able to still accurately get their robot to do what it needs to do. So we suggest that they might think about incorporating sensors, and that's great. But I just want to caution you in terms of telling a team that they should or must use sensors, because I know we've given that feedback in the past, and I don't want to give them the feedback in that way. It will be helpful for them, but it's not a must, okay? The fourth area is to iterate. So this is the other piece on the robot side in terms of the testing piece. Many teams will forget to tell you what their testing process is. So you might have to ask questions about this. And how did they improve their process once they went through the testing process? The most basic testing process is going to be the team telling you they went through trial and error. The more elaborate process will be those that have it all documented and they have a very specific number of iteration or testings that they have to go through, and they need to achieve 90% success rate before they finish iterating that particular attachment. So, well, like I said before, you could see the gamut in terms of how the testing piece works for their area. But hopefully they have a process that they're able to explain to you. And then the communication piece. So this will be interesting because sometimes the teams will have a hard time explaining the reasons why they created their robot in their ways and their attachments. But so this is where we get into how are they able to talk to you about their process and what they've learned through the season, and hopefully they're able to do that. And then team shows minimal pride or enthusiasm for their work. So I will tell you that for most teams on both of the communicate, when it talks about the enthusiasm, even though you may have a team that comes in and they're very quiet and they're shy, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have enthusiasm. Okay, so I want to be careful in terms of marking them down if they're just happen to be quiet and shy, because these students will be afraid of you as judges. So whatever you can do when they come into the room to put them at ease, please do that. One of the things I always ask teams, if I can tell that they're really, really quiet and they seem hesitant to talk, is I always ask the team, what did the team do for fun this season? And it's amazing how they open up, because then they can talk about, we had pizza parties, we would come to, we'd go to so-and-so's house and we'd play games. And so they're able to just talk about something fun. Fun is a core value, something fun that they did as a team. And then they're much more at ease and they're able to talk to you as judges. So whatever you can do to make them and put them at ease, smiling, anything that you can do is very, very, very helpful. So any questions, or did I just confuse everybody?
Nancy, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I did get an email from a coach today that there's going to be one student, and it could be one of you, who has this student in your judging room who is neurodivergent, which is something that we see sometimes. This particular child has hearing sensitivity, so you may have a child that comes in with something to cover their ears. And when that happens, just exactly what Nancy just said, right? Make them feel at ease, sort of read them, and it's okay if they are in the room and are having, are not all that, what would you say, maybe not engaging in a way that maybe you're sort of used to, but it's something that we see, and it can be one of the most, for me at least, in just inspiring sessions is when I have these judging sessions with students who come in very nervous, and they leave, you know, they're high-fiving the judges, and it's just so fun. I've done everything from, you know, you get out from behind your table and sit on the floor and do whatever it is that you need to do to put them at ease.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And sometimes you may not know that you have a child like that. Because I've had teams come in and you will see one child who kind of wanders around or who turns their back to you. And so you just need to keep in mind that this might be a child who, you know, needs a little bit special attention in terms of that's fine. Just, you know, let it go. Don't hold that against them. Do what you can to engage them in other ways. And if they don't, that's fine as well. Typically with a student like that, their teammates will try and bring them back in, which is really awesome to see. And that is a core value, right? When a teammate helps another teammate through difficulty. So you may have teammates. So I'll have some teams, they'll talk, and you'll notice that there are some individuals who aren't talking, but then you'll have a teammate says, "Hey, Ben, what do you think? Can you explain to the judges?" Because they know that they know this particular piece. So when you see teammates encouraging others, that is a wonderful demonstration of core values. And that's where you want to take notes on some of that kind of stuff, because it may not show up in your, you know, your scores, but when you deliberate, if the scores on core values is close, that could be something that breaks a tie maybe too. So those are some of the soft things as judges that you're going to see and want to take note of. But yeah, it is, the experience that you're going to have with these kids is just really, really awesome. They are so much fun, but they will be nervous. So please put them at ease.
Really quick, Nancy, on that
Yes.
note that Elaine just made. I myself, I have a son who is diagnosed on the spectrum. He's 12 years old. I also I work with students on the spectrum at ASU when I was in college. So if there's a need for a judge to do that, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me. If not, then great, because I think it'd be cool if everyone can have the experience, because it is super rewarding. But if there is a need for someone who has experience with a child that is neurodivergent, then reach out to me and let me know. I'm more than able to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gil, which tournament are you doing, Chandler?
Yes, I'm in Chandler.
Okay, because I know I've seen your name, so awesome. If you like the experience, Gil, and I think you will, and you want to participate at state, feel free to sign up for state.
Oh, I would love to. I saw that Elaine put that information earlier, but Elaine, I didn't see a link to sign up. Did I miss that?
Same thing that you did. Well, I don't know. Assuming if you've done it, you go to firstinspires.org.
Yeah.
And but I'm happy to, I'll send you an invitation for it, but believe me, you'll be getting an invitation here in the next couple of weeks. I want to let you guys get through your qualifiers first.
Cool. Okay.
Then I'll ask you.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Originally, I was invited by Alberto Esparza. He's the president of that nonprofit. I forgot the name, but yeah, it was an invite. So yeah, I'd love to go to state.
I Rise Foundation.
Yeah, awesome.
That's
awesome.
the one. That's the one. Yes.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Everyone's really quiet, so I don't know if I've overwhelmed you or if I didn't make any sense, or you just have to wait and see. Okay.
Luckily, it's a straightforward rubric.
You know what? It is pretty straightforward. And I will tell you that the first couple of teams that you see, it'll probably be hard, but it gets easier, I promise, after you see several teams. I will tell you, here's the hardest part. You're going to be listening to the children, and they're going to be telling you all this information, and you're trying to listen to everything, and then you're looking at your rubric and you're like, where does that go? Especially since you haven't done this before. How do I, so it's a lot of information, and in a short, very period of time, you're going to have to go through and start rating them. So take very, very good notes. I will tell you what helps me as I get very organized in terms of my note taking. I make sure that I have my area for identify, for design, create, iterate, communicate. And as they go through their information, I will jot notes in the correct area. So, oh, they just talked about testing, so I will write that my note in iteration, because they won't go in the order. Some of the really good teams, they will go in order of the rubric, but most teams will not go in order of the rubric. So I think that kind of throws some of the judges off. And so you have to go figuring out, where do I write that? So I find it better for me to organize my notes right off the bat. But it's a lot of information coming at you at one time, which can be kind of mind-boggling for the first one, I will tell you. But don't worry, it gets better. It does get better. The only other thing that I'll mention again, so I just want to keep mentioning this, on both of them, just remember it is about the process. So what I don't want you to get hung up on, if you're an innovation judge, it is not your responsibility to decide whether the project or solution that they came up with is innovative, because that's subjective, right? You are assessing the process that they went through to get from their problem to their solution. So follow the rubric, right? You are not determining if that was, oh, that was a really creative and innovative solution. That's not what you're judging. Because sometimes I see judges will do that. Well, that's not very creative. Well, but that's your perspective. That's not really what you're judging. Okay. All right. If there are no questions, I'll let you go. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. I am interested, especially since you're first-time judges, if you have any feedback on how your tournament went, good or bad, send it to me, because I always want to improve whatever we can do to make it a better experience for you and a process for the students.